Hello everyone, it's Vivi and welcome back. Before we dive into the meat of the video, let me just go over what GDC even is for those unfamiliar. From March 21st to the 25th, a bunch of presentations were held at this year's GDC. GDC is a yearly conference for game developers. Key folks appear on stage and give the attendees a presentation. In Rift Apart's case, we had presentations surrounding visual arts, aka animation, programming, production and team management, as well as a design post-mortem. GDC also has its own dedicated awards category. Rift Apart won Best Visual Art and Best Technology Award. With that said, let's bring our attention to the last presentation held on March 25th. The one I'm referring to is the Post-Mortem one. So far, we don't have a video available to the public. The design Post-Mortem certainly had major emphasis placed on the development of Rivet. Lead designer at Insomniac Games, Mark Stewart, came up on stage and shared a good chunk of details you probably didn't know about the process of creating Rivet. A good number of detail was shared to us via an IGN article. One of the core pillars of Ratchet Clank Rift Apart was the idea of everyone's a hero. With that in mind, the team thought about a strong playable female lead. One codename they had for Rivet initially was, are you ready for this one? Ratchet. They believed the name was too diminutive, too confusing even, and led to reducing her existence to a gender-swapped Ratchet, according to Stewart. Next contender was Gadget. Due to obviously already being used in the industry, the examples given were Inspector Gadget and Gadget from Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, so ultimately the name was scrapped. Other names were Socket and Hammer, and those two did not make the cut. From what I recall, these were names which fans had theorized when Rivet was first revealed. Hammer, especially, due to her obviously holding a hammer. Finally, gameplay programmer David Kim was the one who suggested the name Rivet, and the whole team approved of the name. Now in terms of gameplay, one concept which was kept tabs on, survivalist Beastmaker. What had pushed the idea into the limelight was Rivet's intentions. Rather, her grudge against the Emperor. That grudge of hers led to total resentment towards machinery. As a result, Rivet would have decided to embrace nature. By doing so, she would have tamed 3 different creatures: Beetle, a Flyer, and an Agorian Beast. Agorian Beast makes me think of those creatures inhabiting Savali, the Plains Beast according to the character description. They do look similar to the actual Agorian Beast we had in A Crack in Time. In the end, the idea of Rivet utilizing nature as her source of weaponry was scrapped, due to it not being as fun as Ratchet's more traditional style of gameplay we're used to. The team had thought, heck, Ratchet can just use his toolkit, they call it, minus the creature's inventory if we compare him to Rivet. Not having Rivet play like Ratchet, or be as fun as him to play as, well, it constrained the team's creativity. Stewart added, we realized the nature-loving woman was a trope. Think Ferngully, Pocahontas, or Crystal from Star Fox. Moreover, constraining the theme of her weaponry stifled the creativity the franchise was known for. Ratchet's weapons can shift, cut, bomb, and transmute. Making her set exclusively nature-based put unnecessary constraints on us. The whole nature thing did sort of make its way into Rift Apart. Think of Mr. Fungi, Trudy, and the Speedle. The Speedle's butt originally would glow and explode after you'd collide something. They thought that wasn't very everyone is a hero kind of thing. When you're, murdering a Speedle, is what basically Mark Stewart was explaining. The team later tried giving Rivet different skill set. Playtesters weren't too thrilled. This is something they couldn't stress over enough. Make Rivet have unique style of gameplay? Speaking of which, there's a tweet by Stefan Totolo. He shared an image from the GDC, showcasing the different use of gadgets for each character. What sticks out the most is the fact Rivet originally wouldn't have had the ability for mid-air traversal, looking at the section dedicated to the swing shot. Other things Totolo pointed out, the team had the idea of passive shifts, which entailed switching between different dimensions. It was just too confusing. They went with moderation, like how, I take it, for example, rifts would take you to dimensional anomalies. They also had thought about switching from one dimension to another with a click of a button. Instead, they stuck with the idea of Blizon crystals on planet Blizar Prime. Speaking of swapping, there was also the idea of swapping characters on the fly. However, in terms of a lore perspective, it would just confuse the player as to who did what again. Stewart then brought up the cake and frosting analogy, the cake being the core of the game, while frosting being enjoyable diversion in small doses. They compared frosting to Clank pretty much. They went with Rivet being a pure cake, as in make her a core playable character. In this case, make the gameplay of Rift Apart, 50-50 between her and Ratchet. In the end, make it so their personalities are different. Lastly, since I brought up ex-lead writer Sam Maggs, a few other things she mentioned about Rivet. Make it so her name would remind us of a tool or mechanism. Ideally, have her name end with a hard sound and 2 syllables to evoke similarity of speaking. Naming a character is the hardest process, she explained. Rivet was no different. She also put emphasis on the word team, how Rivet's creative process was a team process. She explained that none of this works without the team. They come up with a list of names, and they approve of it as a team. And this whole thread she made on Twitter, well, she shared her sentiment towards not being mentioned or credited during the GDC presentation, specifically when it came to creating Rivet. She even shared how she fought for Rivet's design in the end. She even went on to share, right out of the blue, extra background information about Rivet. Now look, the fact she placed emphasis on teamwork and that she was an ex-lead writer, I mean she worked on this game for 1.5 years, and then her role went to Lauren Mee. In the end, I feel Insomniac Games should be the one confirming this any sort of information. Let me just say this. Folks who stumbled on this thread, there's been lots of mixed feelings and responses. And I'm gonna leave it at that. So with that being said, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and as always, if you have your own questions, thoughts, or anything of such sort, leave it all in the comments section below. And that's about it for this video. By the way, a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. It really means a lot, and it keeps the channel moving. Thank you. And thank you all of you for always tuning in. And yeah, as always, I've been Vivi, and until next time.